You know I love lore. I'm always saying it. I know it gets old, so I'll stop saying it. But, hi guys. Welcome. You're here with me, Jen the Taxidermy Witch. And we are on episode 1 of lore. Since we're always talking about in Scott Cunningham's book of Wicca in the Kitchen, how there's lore, and I always love it, I wanted to do lore. And then it just so happens I went to Barnes & Noble and I did a little video on our field trip Friday, day before yesterday, and so I was getting these books, and they just popped up, and I didn't even know that they existed. So I was just going to be like looking up lore and then telling it to you. I think the Fae dropped these into my life. So, the first story that we're going to be reading, and I'm going to tell you this, if you guys are scared easily, or if you're upset by true crime or murder or anything like that in stories, then you need to probably not listen to this story, or maybe any of these stories. But this one for sure, if those things get to you, don't listen, and just come back for all my next things, you know? Watch all my other episodes of different things. So, there's 2 books of lore. This one is about monstrous creatures. And this one, the green one, the red one's monstrous creatures, the green one is wicked mortals, which are people, right? So the first one we're reading is called Drained. And I'm going to be looking down a lot, obviously, because I'm going to be reading it to you. So enjoy. Drained. Bella Kiss, who was born in 1877, moved from the Hungarian town of Chiknoca in 1900. This was long before the town was absorbed into Budapest. He worked as a tinsmith, although we didn't know much about him beyond that. He rented a home in a cozy neighborhood, and he lived alone. He was alone because his wife Maria, a woman of 15 years younger than he, had reputedly found herself a lover, and the pair had run off together in 1912, leaving Kiss to carry on by himself. As a result, Kiss hired an elderly housekeeper named Mrs. Jogkebek to come take care of the cleaning and chores while he worked. He gave her a tour of the house, pointed out all the important features, and walked her through her responsibilities. His private office, though, was off limits. That was where he sat and corresponded with his lady friends. Now let's remember, this is in 1912. Correspondence was my typewriter somewhere. Typewriter, letters, mail. You didn't hear back from somebody for 7 to 12 days, depending on where they were from. Think about it. So I'm just saying. That was where he sat and corresponded with his lady friends. His housekeeper had seen some of the sealed envelopes on their way out to the post office, but never had the opportunity to read them. Nosy. And Kiss occasionally brought home a young woman, but no woman ever came back for a repeat visit. Maybe he had a commitment problem, or maybe they didn't care for him in person. It was hard to say for sure. Mr. Kiss thought that political change was coming, though, and he told others that he wanted to be prepared. He'd gone as far as to collect metal drums, and he said he was filling the large barrels with gasoline just in case. And by 1914, he was proven right. World War I broke out. He was required to enlist and serve in the military. He handed his house keys to the housekeeper and told her to take care of the place. And then 2 years went by. Eventually, the landlord decided he was probably never going to see Bella Kiss again, and began the process of making the home available for rent to a new tenant. He traveled to the home in July of 1916 and immediately found the barrels of gasoline. After 2 years of war, it didn't take a genius to recognize a valuable commodity, so he called the local police department to make the fuel available to the government. What a genuine soul. Maybe he asked for payment, or maybe he donated in an effort to earn some goodwill. We don't know the motivation, but we do know the outcome. Soldiers arrived at the house to take possession of the fuel drums, but wanted to inspect them before hauling them off. So one of the soldiers poked a hole in the lid of the drum, and then backed away. The odor that escaped was powerful, and full of the scent of decay and rot. It wasn't gasoline, that much was immediately clear, and so they opened the drum and drained it. Inside, they found the body of a woman. They drained another drum and found another body. Over and over, body after body, more women were discovered, each the victim of strangulation. In all, the bodies of 24 women were found on the property. The housekeeper was called in for questioning, and although she didn't know any more than the police did, she did point them to his private office door, the door that she had never been allowed to unlock, so the police got inside. On the surface, it was very office-like. Bookshelves lined the walls, and a desk sat in the middle of the room. But in the desk, the police found a journal of his correspondence with over 74 women, along with a photo album and some letters that were never mailed. Some used false names, and some went as far back as 1903. Kiss, it seems, had been living a secret life. He'd been writing to women who posted in the marriage columns of local newspapers, luring them to his home, and then killing them. And no one had ever suspected a thing. Of course, calls to the military were made looking for the man, but there was no immediate transformation. And then, in October of that year, the military sent word that Kiss was recuperating in a Siberian hospital. Officers were sent to capture him. But by the time they got there, Kiss had somehow placed another man's corpse in his own bed and slipped out of the building. He was never seen again. Or maybe not. 4 years later, a French soldier encountered a man who used one of Kiss's false names, a man who bragged that he was pretty good at strangling people, a man who looked a lot like the description of Bella Kiss. Police were alerted, but the man managed to disappear before they arrived. In 1932, a man who fit the description was seen stepping out of the subway station in Times Square in New York City. A police detective with photographic memory claimed he recognized the man, from old photos, but couldn't get close because of the crowd. 4 years later, someone reported that a man who looked just like Kiss was working as a janitor in an apartment building on 6th Avenue. Police were sent to look into it, but when they arrived, the janitor was gone. This guy is sneaky and somehow telepathic. After that, his trail goes cold. One last thought. There was something odd about each of the victims found in those fuel barrels that day in 1916. Yes, they'd been strangled to death, but they all shared another wound. Right where you might expect, each victim had twin puncture marks right on the side of their necks. When the bodies were further examined, one last clue was discovered. Each woman had been completely drained of blood. So, that story is chilling, but I'm a super fan of lore, folklore, true crime, things that kind of get into your soul, and I think that's because when I was little, my older brothers took care of me, and they let me watch horror movies as a young child. Like 5, 6, 7 years old, I was watching Freddy's and Jason's and whatever, Lost Boys, not so bad, but like at a young age, horror was just on the TV. And I know for some of you too, it's like that. And if you are wondering why you are interested in this kind of stuff, it's because death is a curious thing. Death is a fascinating thing, and it's because we're alive. You understand? We're fascinated with it because we're alive. We're fascinated with anatomy, some of us. I'm fascinated with anatomy. And I just, horror is like a part of me. And I am a really good, lovely witch, but horror is a part of me. And so if you understand that, I'm glad. Please leave comments on, like, if you're into horror or not. If you don't like this part of my channel, leave comments and let me know. If you do, let me know too. Because, you know, I'm just starting these weekly episodes of, like, you know, Fame Mondays and Telltales on Tuesday. And I'm putting myself on the spot on a quiz. What's Wednesday? So, yeah, and so Saturday Night Lore. So I'm giving this all a try. I think it's going to be really fun. And, yeah, Jen the Taxidermy Witch, talking about lore, new episodes every Saturday. Please leave comments on what you thought. Love you guys.